G'day, Tragic here, and now we're going to do, it's a bit zoomed in, yoing, Doomtown Reloaded, Election Day Slaughter. Awesome. This is probably one of my favourite card games at the moment. Absolutely love it. We don't play... I play a lot of card games, but because I play so many, it's very rare that I get to play all of them, you know what I'm saying? But Christmas is here, and the whole point of Christmas for me is that I get to play all the games that I don't usually get to play. So it's time to open these packs, build some new decks, and take on the other cowboys. So let's have a look and see what we got here. Now this is a very, very complicated game. I think it's probably one of the most rule-heavy games in the card game, deck construction genre. Well, one of them, I guess. I'd probably say that Middle-earth is probably one of the best and most complicated. Anyway, the point is, let's get into this. We'll see how it goes. Okay, so the first thing we have is the Brute. Okay, this guy is an abomination. And he's part of the clowns. Good old carny folk. The carny guys, they're actually one of my favourite decks. They're the ones with all the hucksters and stuff. So let's have a look at here. For start, he's a 4-spade. Yeah, that's alright. He's got 1 copper bullet and no influence. When aced to cover casualties in a shootout, reduce the remaining casualties you must cover by 2. Okay, so he's a pretty interesting abomination. He's got no upkeep cost. There's only 2 to put out. And what's interesting about this guy is that he basically is like a double ace, I suppose. So he's worth 4. So because he's so big and bulky and muscly or whatever, he's basically worth 4 damage. Now, I think this makes him a prime candidate to be in your opening posse, especially if you're playing... Because when you're playing hucksters, you can there's a lot of different ways to play them, but one of them is to have like a master spell slinger, like some super duper wizard. So you have like one awesome huckster who's just loaded with spells, right? And this is a great way to protect him. Now, there are many ways to bring abominations back into play. Not so much from the graveyard, but yeah. It is a good card. I like this card. Now, this isn't an LCG, remember? So there's actually 4 copies of each card. Now, but the interesting thing is, because of the deck building requirement to this game, it's very unusual to have 4 copies of your actual, characters. So we'll have to see exactly how that all works out. Okay, so now we have Smiling Tom, yet another guy. Oh, that's something else. I've got so many things to think about with this game. With the Brute, by the way, he's only got a value of 4. Now, like I was saying, one of the reasons that I see to use the Brute is for his ability to protect your big... heavily invested, because you heavily invest all this time loading up spells on your huckster, right? You use this guy to protect him. But hucksters, the whole thing about hucksters is you're doing pulls to cast your spells. You don't want low value cards hanging out in your deck if you can help it. See, this guy is also abomination, but he has a nice juicy queen value. Okay, so he is way, way, way better at pulling for spells. Okay, let's check out this guy. He has 2 silver bullets. He's got an influence of 2. He's got a huckster 4. Whoa, nice. And Tom can only move to your home or to a location that has another 4th ring dude. Interesting. Now, he does have an upkeep of 2. Now, in my experience, and remember, I'm not like an expert in this game. I do play it. I play it quite a lot, mainly with my other mates. But my other mates, they don't have good jobs. You know what I mean? So they can't update their cards all the time, so they finally bought some new packs, so I can open my freaking packs. But my point is, I don't have the experience of some people, but in my experience, because I actually play, this is the faction that I play the most, because I just can't get over the theme of these crazy magical carny guys. But there's some resourcing problems with the early game with these carny dudes, and I think having a 2 upkeep in your starting posse is kind of harsh. I mean, this guy's 7 to get out. That being said, I mean, he is strong. He's got a 2 silver bullet. He's got his 2 influence. He's got a huckster 4, so you can, if you wanted, you could use this guy to load up. I mean, plus 4 to your huckster pulls is pretty strong. Okay, so if you're pulling whatever you pull, so the way, just in case you don't know, what happens is, say this is your deck, right? Every time you want to cast a spell, you draw a pull, and you just pull it off the top of your deck, and you look at the value, and then you add whatever the huckster value is. So this would be 12 plus 4. Okay, so that's a massive amount, and if that value is higher than the spell cost, well, the casting cost of the hex, then the spell is successfully cast. So having huckster plus 4, like a plus 4, is huge. I think this is an extremely good card, and he is an abomination, which means there's all the ways to get him back. There's so many options for playing these guys for cheaper, pulling him out of the graveyard, putting him in for free, bouncing him in, bouncing him back in your hand. It's all about, basically, abominations is kind of this game's version of a demon, right? So think about demons. When you think about the thematics of demons, we're talking about summoning them, banishing them, having them, disappear and fade out and all that kind of stuff. That's the way abominations behave. And because this guy is an abomination and a huckster, I think he's an extremely good card. I'm a little worried about that two upkeep cost, but even so, very, very strong. And he's a queen. Go queen. Okay, what have we got here? Philip Stanford. He's a 3/1, 2 influence. Wow. Oh, experienced. Okay, experienced. This is actually a keyword from the original game. Wow. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so let me see if I can find it. Where is he? Here we are. Okay, so this guy here, he is Philip as well, okay? He's the deputy, right? He's a deputy of the town. But let's put him here. Okay. Now this is basically like an attachment. It's experience 1, okay? Now as the game progresses, I guess we'll see experience 2s and 3s or whatever. Now think of this as like a level up. If you ever played Magic the Gathering, you remember the level up cards where you actually level them, It's kind of similar to that. So when this gets played, it physically replaces your old version of Philip Stanford, okay? Now, Philip Stanford is, if we look at his ability, each time a player reveals a cheating hand and your hand is legal, you may discard a card from your hand to draw a card, okay? So basically, if they're cheating and you're not, you get to penalize them, you draw a card, you discard a card. Now, this should be different. Each time an opposing player reveals an illegal draw, okay, a legal draw just means a cheating hand. I don't know why that's worded differently, but whatever. And you do not, you may draw a card and discard a card. So it's actually a lot better. It's a lot more potent effect. Basically, this guy you have to discard and then draw, while this guy you can then draw and discard. It maybe discard the one you just drew. So it's a slightly better effect. He also has an extra influence. He's got a different spade cost, and he's got one more to play, and he's got an upkeep now. Okay, so that's the way these experience things work. Now, the experience 1 means that you can only upgrade level 0 characters with this one. Like if you had an experience 2, you could only upgrade level. You could upgrade from 0 to 2. You know what I mean? It's basically you can upgrade at 1 level. Whatever. Now, is this a good card? What I find interesting about this card the most is that it is a 3/2, okay? Now, the deck building rules require you to have 4 of any given named card. So even though this is a different card to this, they both are called Philip Stanford, so they're both part of the same deck building. You can only ever have 3 copies of this guy and 1 copy of this guy, for example. Now, the possibility exists, because one of the things that makes this game so complicated is the deck building rules. And because unlike most games where you're just talking about synergism between your effects and everything, you have to pay close attention to your values and your suits, because you're trying to do these poker hands for shootouts and all that kind of stuff. Now, you'll note that this guy is already a 2/3. So if we see another upgrade to Philip Stanford, it's going to be a 4 spades. I'm calling that now. And you're going to start to see the ability to get these straights coming out. But even so, this is one of these effects that's a good effect. I don't know. Philip, he's like a kind of... I should probably read... the actual rules for experienced... Is it in here? Experienced characters. Okay, here's the actual rules for experience. I don't think you can play them by themselves. So yeah, it looks like they've changed the rules with experience a little bit from the original game. But basically it works like this. You can replace this, you can upgrade your character as an action, okay, during the noon phase. You just do it. Doesn't cost you anything, but it takes up an action round, because you know how it's like their turn, your turn, their turn, your turn. It takes up one of your turns. But you don't have to pay the cost. But any other time you can use the cost. So you can put it in your starting group, right? And you can play it normally, even if there isn't another card to upgrade, right? Then you just got to pay the full cost to upgrade it, which in this case would be 4, right? So I can spend 4 to put it out as normal, or I can just upgrade it for free. Now, when you're upgrading, you can only upgrade levels, because this is experience 1, it can only go 1 experience level. And you can actually downgrade as well, because they do have different effects, these guys, but they're very similar. But there's nothing saying, like if you look at other cards, there's nothing saying they couldn't have completely different effects. And you can actually swap them as you wish, as long as you're swapping them inside the level range. You can only do it once per day, which is like 1 round from sun up to sundown. I think this is a pretty cool card, and I like it. I mean, if you're going to have this guy in your starting, then you can have maybe 1 or 2 of the upgrade cards in your actual deck. And I think that's pretty cool. I really like that, and I love the experience keyword. I guess we're going to see a whole bunch of these in this pack, and that is fine by me. Okay, what have we got now? Okay, so we're out of... we're back... Yeah, anyway, so now we are at Law Dogs. We have a 7 of spade, we have 1 copper, and we have 1 influence. A Mad Scientist 1. Now, Mad Scientist is kind of like a huckster. It's a +1 to your pool to create gadgets, right? So +1 is not as good as a +4 that recent huckster had. But anyway, each time the player reveals an illegal draw hand and you do not, Drew many... what? Oh, Drew, that's his name. Drew may immediately attempt to invent a gadget without booting. Okay. This is a pretty interesting card. It's got a control point, which is good for delaying the end game. The one bullet is interesting, I guess. The Mad Scientist one, yeah, look, this guy doesn't do a lot for me. I think he'd probably be good as a... you know, like as a starting character, so you can get those early plays happening, you know, where you're... Because a lot of the way the draws work is that they're designed to have the cards that are constantly being cycled. The cards that end up on permanently on the table are kind of not considered when they're designing, you know, if they're going to get flushes or straights or whatever. Okay, so the more they get on the table, the stronger their draws are going to be. So what that means is that illegal card, unless you've got a deck that's supposed to be doing illegals, which is, or cheatings, I don't know why they're calling it illegals suddenly. Yeah, unless you're sort of designing to do cheating card decks, which is probably not really that good an idea, then you're going to have more cheating hands in the early game. So having this guy as a starting guy is pretty cool. And I don't know, I like him, but I'm not particularly happy with his ability. A one Mad Scientist. I don't know. Most of the good gadgets are pretty easy to invent, so +1 isn't that bad. Even so, he doesn't instill me with much love. Okay, what have we got here? Dr. Arden Gilman. He's another Mad Scientist one. Shootout Boot. Okay. Arden makes a Mad Scientist skill check against an opposing dude's grit. If successful, send that dude home booted. If successful by 6 or more, ace the dude. If the pull is a spade or a joker, Arden suffers the same fate. Okay, so this is an interesting thing. Now, grit is a value that's not actually on the card. You calculate it, okay? So this guy's grit is his value, which is 6, plus his bullets, which is 0, plus his influence, which is 1. So he's got a grit of 7. Now, this is basically, I don't know, you can send people home, you can even ace them if you have really high pulls. Remember, he's only got a +1 on it, so it's going to be very, very hard. You know, but, you know, some people, they run ace, they run low value characters. I don't know. Well, but they probably shouldn't, not with shotgun and stuff. But the point is that, I mean, this is an interesting card. What I like about this card the most, though, is that if you pull a spade or a joker, it actually backfires and hits him. And what that means is that it's going to greatly affect your deck construction. And I think that's a really cool idea. You know, cards that force new ways of thinking about building your decks. Because I remember spades are dudes, right? Okay? So you're always going to have spades in your deck. There's not a lot you can do about that. I don't know. I kind of like this guy. It's like basically like having one of those club action cards in your hand at all times. Still, interesting. And it is at shootout speed, which is pretty handy. I don't know, he's alright. He's alright. Okay, what have we got here? Ooh, now here's a huge guy. He's got like a 3-stud. Wow. Okay, 3 silver bullets, 2 influence. He's got 9 of spades, he's got 2 upkeep, and he has a 6. Wow, he's a strong guy. After Avid enters play, make a noon trading play. Okay, I really like this card. Okay, so you can have your mad scientists at home doing your construction, building your items, and you can play this and then suddenly you're in trading. Okay, so it's basically like getting an extra action for your turn. You can load him up with whatever you need, give him some horses so he can move around without booting, whatever you want, and then send him off. He's got 3 stud, 2 influence. I mean, this guy, he's a beast. This is a very aggressive card. He does have a 2 upkeep, But even so, I think that's all right, because you don't want to put this guy in your starting hand. What I mean by that is, in case you don't know, because Doomtown's a little bit esoteric, is that part of your deck building requires you to select a certain amount of value cards, cost cards, I should say, and have them on the table at the start of the game. Like, you don't need to play them. It's called your starting posse or hand or whatever. And some cards you want in there, some you don't. Now, this is a guy that you probably wouldn't want in there. Not only does it have quite an expensive upkeep, which, if you haven't got your resource system set up at the early stage of the game, but also his ability sort of keys on the fact that you've already brought into play various attachments of, gadgets or horses or whatever, guns, whatever. So there's some setup required before this guy comes in, and then bam, he comes in, he just gets loaded up with cool shit, and he's off. I think he's an extremely good card, very aggressive, and dig it. I dig it, man. Okay, so what have we got here? A 5/2/1 Ali Hensman. It's another experienced. I think she's the one that raises influence. Ali Hensman, where are you? Here we are. Yeah, the control point one. I knew what I was talking about. Okay, so here's the original card here. Ooh, she's a little bit more badass in the second card, isn't she? Okay, so firstly, let's just compare the values. She starts off as an ace. We've already seen how ace is very easily targetable. There's lots of things that can trigger off lower value. She's a higher value in general, which means, that's awesome. It means that she can be used for various different effects and pulls. She's a 2/1. Now, her original ability is a noon boot. If Ali is in the town square, she permanently gets 1 control point. Interesting. Now, she has a noon job. Now, a job is basically... It's basically like you start a fight, right? You form a posse, you have your combat and everything, but instead of winning area control, you actually win an effect. If you lose the battle, or if the person just, declines the battle completely, depending on how the battle is won, then you actually gain the effect. So this job says, she leads a job and marks an opposing dude. If successful, the mark controller must give you Ghost Rock equal to the mark's influence. If the player cannot or does not, discard the mark. Okay. So this is a pretty interesting card. What I don't like about this card is it just doesn't, it doesn't change the actual board state. Okay, it gives you money. If they can't afford to pay, they kill the guy. But we're talking about triggering off their influence. So if I was going to attack myself here, it'd only be 1. I only need to beat a 1, you know what I mean? I'd only get 1 Ghost Rock for all that effort. And you lose a shootout, you could take tremendous amounts of damage. I'm a rather passive player. I play a more area control kind of game. And I think that the biggest problem people have with this game, especially beginners, is overcommitting to combat. And this is the kind of card that's going to make you go, ooh, let's do a job. We'll, target this dude. We'll get a couple of Ghost Rock. It's all good. But oh my God, now all my guys are wiped out and I'm just being trampled. It could be a very dangerous card. Now, I do like the upgrade. I think this is actually a stronger upgrade than the Philip Stanford one. But even so, 2 influence as well. I don't know. This is going to encourage a lot of attacking. It's going to go very, very well with big ass Average guy. Interesting. I don't know. I reckon this is a good card. I think the upgrade's interesting. I don't know. Nice. I would have to play this, but again, I seem to play a little less combat-orientated decks, and I don't know. It just seems that the reward... all you're getting is Ghost Rock equal to the mark's influence. So if I did this card on this, I'd only get one Ghost Rock. So the Ghost Rock is almost not the point, okay? The point is the combat, and the point is the ability that they will possibly have to discard. I don't know. It seems very, I don't know. I'm not overly interested in that card. Definitely one I have to give a try to, though. Milt Clemens. It's an 8/2/1. Whenever Milt's bounty increases, gain 1 Ghost Rock. Meh. Okay. It's a 6/1. Means if you increase his bounty every turn, you can pay for him for free, kind of thing. He does have a 2 stud. He's got 1 influence. I like this guy. I think he's pretty cool. He does combo. I think it's the patent office, or one of the locations allows you to raise or lower a person's bounty. So you can raise his bounty as much as you want. The problem is, of course, if you've got a high bounty, you're risking bounty hunters coming into town. Also, if you get killed, the other person gets the money. Makes him a nice, juicy target. Now, I think because this game is, in my experience, so area control, having really juicy targets with bounty is great for pulling focus from different areas of the map, allowing you to zoom in while they move over there to get, they might get all the money, they might kill them, but they use all their characters up and then they're all booted, and you can just get free reign on the rest of the turn. Now, these kind of decoys are actually an extremely strong play, and they're hard for the other person to see, because people, even experienced players, they get very, very caught up with the instant reward. But unlike most card games, there's a very long-term strategies can be involved in this game. Feinting, counterfeiting, sacrificing, the kind of thing you normally see in chess type games. And I think this is a really good card, actually. The more I think about it, the more I like this card. The 1 upkeep, not that interesting, but I know. I think he's very, very good. I love the 2 stud. Very, very cool. Interesting. Bonk and bonk. Jake Smiley. Okay, this is a neutral, is it? Yeah, this is a neutral. Okay, he's an ace, so he's a little chumper. He's only got 1 copper, no influence. Jake has +2 influence during the sundown phase. Huh. Interesting. I really like this card. This is a card you probably, maybe even in your starting posse, because it only costs 2. But, then you get the ace out of your deck. You don't want an ace in your deck. Ace is low in this game, by the way. But seriously, this is a great way to just add that extra bit of influence to, help you with those control points, okay? I mean, the way the game is won is that you have control points on locations, and if your control points are higher than the influence of all the other players individually, then you win the game. So this is a great way just to get that couple of extra influence. Very, very easy to keep that influence. It doesn't cost any upkeep. This is the kind of card that looks really boring. You're like, meh, he doesn't do much. But I think what we're really talking about here is a 2 cost for 2 influence. That's fantastic. Now, I think he's a very well designed card as well, because the influence only counts during the sundown phase, which is when you calculate winners and stuff. So you can't combo him with other cards that use influence as a powering, like I think it's one of the IDs, right? You can tap the ID and it will give you the ability to lower the cost of playing a deed, which is a location, by the influence of the guy, and that's very, very strong. So this little limiter means that he's only useful for the end game state. I think that's a great addition. I think all in all, this is a fantastic card. I'm not a big fan of aces, but you can stick him in your opening posse without any, or opening, whatever they call it. It's not called the posse, the opening set of people, but whatever it's called, you can stick it in there quite easily because he's only 2 cost. I think he's actually a very cool card. Okay, the Quarterman. Neat. Okay, this is a 3 spade and he's a 1 stud. Non-unique. Oh, that's a bit cool. Okay, so every card in this game, pretty much, well, not every, most of all the spades and all the hearts, not the hearts, the diamonds, so the locations and the characters are unique. Now, it used to be extremely brutal in the original game because unique was actually unique across the entire table, kind of like the old way that, oh man, I'm having a mental blank. I think it was Mythic in Magic the Gathering. Anyway, whatever. The point is, in the old game, uniqueness was across the table as well, but now the uniqueness is just for you. So your opponent can play the same characters that you're playing, but you can't. Okay, you can have them in your deck for your construction, but you can't put them on the table. So you can only ever have one Jake Smiley. Okay, everything is unique, but this guy is not unique, and that is awesome. That's really, really awesome, and it's great for thinning your deck. Remember, I was talking about it before. When you're designing your deck, you want to try and design your deck to be able to get certain scores, certain draws. And it's a lot easier to do that once you've got stuff on the table, because you know that this card's not going to be in play. This card's going to be out of the play, which means that my draws are going to be more potent. But with Quarterman, you can actually have 4 copies of this if you wanted in your deck, but still have the ability to thin it out of your deck by getting all of them on the table. And that's a really interesting thing and an unusual thing so far in the game for characters. Now, he's only a 1 cost. He has got a 1 cost upkeep, so having him 4 on the table would be quite expensive. But he does have a stud. Quarterman must be invented by a mad scientist like any other gadget. It enters the play at the mad scientist location. Quarterman's bullets cannot be modified except by attached goods. Cards cannot move or boot Quarterman. Okay, so basically, look how awesome the art is. Basically, he's like a mechanical scarecrow dude, right? Love him. I think that's absolutely awesome. Powered by Fel energy there. But, you know, he cannot have his bullets reduced or increased, which is not as good, but not reduced is the important part. And, you know, he can't even be booted or moved. I think he's an extremely good card. I love this card. And I love that he's not even, you know, a faction-based card. I mean, he does have a you know, an upkeep regardless. The factioning in this game is very loose, actually. You can actually put any card from any faction in any deck. You just have an increased upkeep cost. But even so, I think this is a very, very good card. I love the idea of it. Now, it's got a difficulty of 5, right? That's what this little value here means. And difficulty of 5 means that you just need to do a Mad Scientist pull of 5 or more, which isn't hard to do at all. Because Mad Scientist decks, kind of like Huckster decks, they're built to use high values, all right? And that means because they've got high values, they usually go last, you know what I mean? Like, because they're losing the low ball hand, and they're also, because they've got high values, it's a little bit harder for them to get, you know, some of the more interesting, because basically the more interesting the card is, usually the lower the value is, you know, as a kind of a counterbalance. Anyway, I like this guy a lot. I think he's awesome. I just love the theme of that guy as well. That's a very cool card. What's really interesting about this card is that you can kind of park him at locations. They can't get rid of him. They can't lower his bullet count. I mean, he's a great guard. You know, you think about him as a mobile character. You can move around. I mean, he does have 3 value. I don't know. Interesting. I like this guy a lot. Okay. Angelia Payne. Okay. Okay, 10 value. That's more like it. 7 cost. 7 cost and no upkeep. Okay, instantly thinking starting posse. Noon Boot. If Angela is at a deed you do not own, gain 2 Ghost Rock. Yeah, I don't like that ability at all. Basically, if you're booted, you can't refuse shootouts, okay? Which means that you can be killed very easily, like super easily. This is another neutral. Yeah, so you got to boot. I don't know. You boot. You gain 2 Ghost Rock. You know that sounds great in theory, but unless you got ways to protect her or unboot her, she is just a big, massive target, just waiting to be, bombed. I don't know. There are ways that I can see this would work. I've got a very heavy horse. Well, I'm trying to build a horse deck, but horses are not quite there yet at this point in the game for me. Remember, I'm behind the way behind the meta because our group is only up to opening the next 3 of these packs, right? So the horse decks don't really work yet, but one of the cool things about horses is that you can enter shootouts without booting, and there's various little effects like that. There's a couple of dudes that have that ability as well, and using that with her might be great. You have this nice juicy target. People can come in and instantly attack you, and you can jump in and help her, form your posse without booting and flood that location. I like that idea a lot. I don't know. I think she's an interesting card. I do like the fact she's got no upkeep. That's one of the things I really dig about her. But I think her ability is a bit. I wouldn't say it's bad. It's just a bit clumsy. It's a bit awkward to use because of the risk that she is, bringing on herself. Interesting card. I always seem to have money problems in my decks, so I'm always interested in that. Oh, and that's it. That's it for dudes. Okay, so much for the dudes. Let's have a look at the locations now. The Mayor's Office. It's a private, it's a government location, okay. It has 2 control points. Now see how she has the red, that's an influence, and he has the blue. These are location cards, right? Like deeds to locations. And you want to own more of the town, right? So if your control points ever outweigh the influence, you win the game. Mayor's Office, private government, control a noon boot, okay. Raise or lower the influence of a dude at this or an adjacent location by 1. Okay. I like that. This is a good card. Again, it's good for delaying those win conditions. And it can be used in combo with... Because this is unlike, whatever his name was, Mr. Smiley. Where's Smiley? I think he was after the quartermaster. Come here, Smiley. Yeah. Unlike Smiley, this actually occurs at any time. So, it's just during the boot. So you get to use that influence if you're using it to power another card's effect, okay? I know, this is an interesting guy. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure... Yeah, I'm a little rusty on this game. I'm pretty sure noon effects only last for the turn. So these aren't... You can't just keep casting it, tap, tap, and then, end up with like a guy with like 500 influence. It always goes away. But even so, it's a strong card. It can delay wins. It can also power effects. I like it. And I like that it can lower people, I've been thinking mostly about my own guys, but you can actually use this to affect your opponents. And one of the great things you could use this for, actually, is to wrest control of locations. You see, when you have people at locations, so this guy has an influence of 1, right? So at the moment, anytime the influence is drawn, so I have a guy here, he's 1, my opponent has a guy of 1. If I have a guy here with a power of 1, because it's drawn, I control the location. But anytime it's not balanced like that, whoever has the highest influence at the location wins. And that's how you become the location's controller. Now see how it says controller noon boot? Controller not only gets access to the the control points, but also gets access to the card's ability. So you could use this to lower the actual influence of someone at a location adjacent to you, that will then give you the ability to then suddenly you've got control of the location. And that could be a big deal. And let's not forget that this guy has a +2 to your resources each turn, which is pretty awesome. Okay. What have we got here? Hunter protections. Okay, there's a 7 of diamond. It's got no control points. Control a noon boot. Boot your dude. Without a control point at this location, raise their bounty by 2. They permanently get 1 control point. This is interesting. Basically, you're putting control points on a dude. That's very unusual. It's only 4 cost, and it costs 1 to get out. You can't start with any locations in play. You have to draw them naturally. But even so, 4 costs for +1, that's pretty good right there. Now, as for the ability, like I said, there are cards that key off bounties. Like you get more bullets for your bounty, or you get all this for your bounty. There's things that target bounties, like what's it called? Bounty Hunter, I think it's called, and stuff like that. So at the moment, bounties kind of suck. I try to not have bounties. You get bounties for attacking private locations as well, by the way. See how this says private? This location says private, and this location... Oh, this is also private. But if you attack private locations, you get bounties on you. I don't know. I like this. I like this card, but I can't think off the top of my head of why this card would be good, but I think the ability to add bounty, to make your guys wanted and to add bounty to them will be good if you have cards that key off those effects. If you have a reason to be wanted, if you have a reason to have high bounties, then this card is a no-brainer. So it's basically a combo enabler, and I love combo enablers, because the thing about combo enablers is that even if there isn't a real use for this inside the deck that you have now, this is the kind of card that you'll come back to maybe half a year later, and you go, wow, look at this card. I really need something that I can modify my bounty really easily. Oh, wait, what about Hunter Protections? Oh, yeah. I like this guy a lot. 7 of diamonds as well. Now, I play this game a lot, but I suck at the deck building. I'm just incapable of working out how to get good draws. So I can't advise on 7 of diamonds is that good or not. Basically, but the way I do it is I build the deck, I get the synergies to function, and then I just start doing test draws and just see what kind of shootouts that the deck produces. And then if I need to modify it, that's when I modify it. That's the way I build the decks anyway. Okay, evidence. Yoink. The evidence. Okay, so this is a heart. That means it's a goods card of some sort. Noon. Reduce a wanted dude's bounty to 0. Here you go. Here's another manipulation card that manipulates bounties. Okay. Reduce the bounty to 0. Discard the card. Noon. Pay 1 Ghost Rock. Raise the bounty on a dude by 2, and then ace the card. Okay. Now, this uses a noon action, so you can basically tip your hand that you're going to attack someone. You could raise their bounty by 2, attack them, and then you get that 2 Ghost Rock. So that gives you a net increase of 1 Ghost Rock, which could be a big deal. But you have to ace the card completely for that. Otherwise, it goes back into your discard pile for what I would say would probably be the most used ability, which is just as a 0 to zero out your guy's bounty, which would then remove him from wanted. Okay, so basically, if you have any bounty, you're wanted. So that's the 3 states. There's wanted, and there's non-wanted, and then there's also the bounty. Okay, so if you're at 0 bounty, you're not wanted. Again, this is very similar to the Hunter Protections. Now, we did see a card, we did see a dude in here that had effect. Here we go, Milt Collins. I like this guy. Whenever Milt's bounty increases, gain 1 Ghost Rock. All right, so we've got this card here. We can gain Ghost Rock through the Hunter Projections and through the Evidence. Now, you're not going to use him really to do that, though, because you spend 1. You spend 1 to gain 1 with that other dude. So, I don't know. I just don't think there's a lot of compelling reasons to actually modify your, modify your wanted value at this point. I mean, we'll see if something comes later. But this is a card to keep your eye on as well for similar reasons. I wouldn't call that a combo enabler, because combo enablers are usually permanent play things. Or fetches or stuff like that. Anyway, teleportation device. Okay, so it's an experimental improvement and a gadget difficulty 6. Wow, there's a lot of stuff going on in this. After this gadget is invented, attach it to a deed that you control. Repeat control on noon, pay 1 Ghost Rock. Choose your dude at this location and pull. If the pull is a club, discard the dude. Otherwise, move your dude to another location without booting. Okay. I love this card already. Basically, my favorite effect in this game, the effect that I seem to have the most success with, is actually movement cards. Cards that control movement. Moving in this game is a big deal. You move, you boot, and when you boot, you're vulnerable. You can't do things. You can't activate your abilities, or most of your abilities. So movement's a huge deal. Now, as the game is going, it seems that every single time I get a pack, there's new ways to manipulate the way you move. So maybe that effect is going to reduce in power. Maybe eventually we'll get to the stage where you're going to be able to move fairly freely and still have your actions available. But at the especially in the core set alone, really restricted on your movements. So I love movement effects, is my point. Now, this is another card that it really forces deck design. Because if you pull a club, wow, you got to discard the guy that you're trying to teleport. I guess he gets teleported into nowhere. But there's a couple of things I love about this card. One, it ignores adjacency. You can teleport him to any other location, even out of town. He doesn't boot to do it. But the problem is you're going to have to not have clubs in your deck. I mean, unless you want to risk having your guy get teleported into, lost in time and space. So, I mean, that could be not bad, because if you're running a heavy gadget deck, then you probably don't need all your clubs. Clubs are action cards, okay? You'll see clubs at the end. They're like one-off action cards. I don't know. This is the kind of card I love. It dictates a deck design, a new type of deck design. There was a card earlier on that was similar. I think it was actually... oh, God, look at you got to love the Carney's Smiling Tom, baby. No, where was he? There was a guy... Here we are. This is a similar guy. I think it was this guy. No, that's not him. There was a guy somewhere... here we are. It was the good old Doctor. Now, he had a similar kind of thing. If you pulled a spade or a joker, this guy would get killed. So, I think this one is actually even more so as one that dictates new deck design. But I do love it. I do love it. Now, what is great is that this doesn't boot. The teleportation device doesn't boot. It's just there. All you got to do is pay the Ghost Rock and off he goes. So that's just fantastic. Yeah, I think that is an extremely strong card, but it would require a deck designed for it. A club one without a lot of clubs, basically. Okay, what have we got here? The Mayfair Family Deck. Mystical, a magical poker deck. That's what I need for this game, a mystical deck. Excellent. This dude has Huckster 0. Now, what it means by... See how these are hearts? These are attachments, basically. So you attach this to a dude and he's suddenly a Huckster 0. Now, we've seen Hucksters before. All Huckster 0 means is that there's no modifier, but he can actually cast spells. If this card leaves this dude, discard all hexes from this dude. Okay, this is an interesting card. It's obviously, vulnerable to being stolen or being destroyed as a target, and then you lose all your hexes. Because hexes, when I talk about spells, I talk about hexes, right? But they're not spells like in most games. They're actually attachments. Well, most of them are attachments. And once they're attached, they can boot independently of your huckster. So as your huckster develops his spell book, is the way I like to think of it, like he gets all these spells in his repertoire, he can become very strong. Hucksters are just awesome, and the theme of them is awesome. I just love hucksters. Go carnies, go carnies. Now, this is an interesting card. It's a king high. King of hearts, they're pretty awesome. It's only one cost. It turns people into hucksters, so you don't have to put hucksters in your deck. And if you've got a high enough, value deck, like your values here are high enough, you don't need the huckster to have any plus value. I know. It's an interesting card. I like it. I like the theme of it more than anything else, but it's still pretty cool. Okay, what have we got now? Okay, so now we have a hexed. So this is actually a hex. Okay, puppet, hex, noon, hex X boot. X is the grit of the dude at this location. Take control of the dude until after the sundown phase. Okay, so it's basically a mind control. What's interesting about this card, I guess, is that it's kind of like that other card we looked at just before. Let me have a look. Where was it? Evidence. Is it evidence? No. Here, it's kind of like Angela here. It's got a kind of cumbersome series of... It's like the order in which things happen is a bit cumbersome. It's a little bit hard to use. Because this puppet, right, you've got to go to the location to use it. And it's a powerful effect. A massively powerful effect. Remember, it's hitting grit. So if we were going to do this guy, it would be 4, okay? Because it's 2 plus 1 plus 1. So it's only a 4 pull. So this would just be a boot X, man. Not hard at all to get this happening. But on the other side of the coin, you actually have to be at the location. So you have to go to the location, then they have a whole action round to react to your arrival. So the threat of this card is probably more intense to the game than the actual card itself, because it's very easy to play around, but it forces you to play around it. If you don't play around it, you're in all sorts of trouble. But because you're playing around it, you're not actually going to get to use it very often to do any particularly interesting plays. That being said, when it does go off, it's going to be sweet. I think this is a great example of card design. Extremely strong card, and what I love about this is the way that this card is going to affect how the games function. The mere fact that this card exists is going to change how people play a hex deck. You've got to have one. You've got to reveal it to them during a draw of some kind. Like whether it's through a low ball or a shootout. Basically, they have to see that this card is in your deck, and then, bam, that's it. They have to play around it for the rest of the game. I actually love that. I think that's awesome. That being said, because it's so easy to play around, you might not get to use it very often. So you think, after a couple of games, you'll think, well, do I need this? Who knows? You'll have to see. Okay, a 6, hearts. This is another hex, and it is a summoning. Noon Hex X. If successful, mark the town square for a job. If the job succeeds, immediately play an abomination from your hand, reducing its cost by 6 ghost rock, paying all other costs. The abomination permanently gets 1 control point. Okay. This card was pretty strong, and then as I kept reading, it's just like stronger and stronger and stronger. Okay, so this is another way to bypass abomination costs. I talked about that at the beginning. Carnies just get all the good stuff, don't they? Yeah. I mean, this is a ridiculously strong card. Now, again, it is requiring a job to go off, which means that it can be opposed, which, means that you're going to force a shootout. Most of the time, it's going to force a shootout because people are going to be like, whoa, you're going to play an abomination from your hand, reducing the cost by 6. You could play some beastly abominations. But, are there really that great abominations for that cost? I mean, there's some pretty good ones. There's Bobo. I love Bobo. But I think this guy here might actually be the best abomination we've seen in the game. This Smiling Tom guy. But you might want to have him on your deck from turn 1. Interesting. I mean, I think a lot of the game, especially at this stage, so early in the game, many cards are all about making design space for the future. And, I mean, abominations, they're never going to stop printing abominations. I doubt it anyway. So this card is always going to have targets, and there's just going to be more targets and more targets and more targets. And this is the kind of card that you're never going to forget about. Summoning. It's just a fantastic card, even with the drawback of it actually having to have a shootout, or do a job, I should say. Anyway, very, very cool. Super cool, in fact. Love it. Okay. Okay, here we go. Ridden down. Boot your horse to send a dude without a horse at this location home booted. Okay, I mean, I like this card. I mean, you lose your mobility, but you get to, get someone out of dodge, just move someone the hell away. You can save your own person, or you can move an enemy, it depends what you want to do. I like this card. It is an 8 of clubs. Now, these are the sort of instant effects I was telling you about. Now, 8 of clubs, like I said, I've been trying to build a horse deck myself, and I'm pretty certain, let me have a look here. I'm fairly certain, if I remember right, I haven't got any of all my decks are virtual at the moment, or most of them, so I'm pretty sure I've got everything in here. Come on, where's all my clubs? 8 of clubs. 6, 7 of clubs. Run them down. 7 of clubs. Each member with a horse. Okay, so that's a 7 clubs. 8 of clubs. 8 of clubs. Oh, the 9 of clubs is gone. 9 of clubs. Fresh horses. 10 of clubs. Extortion. Recruitment drive. Anyway, my point here is that a straight is being organized here, right? So you've got, what was this? This is an 8 of clubs. So we've got 8, 7, pin down. Okay, run them down. That's 7. Then there's 8. Then we've got 9 fresh horses. Sure, there was a 10. I have to. Whatever. The point is, hex slinging, baby. Oh, that's such an awesome card. Okay, the point is that this is definitely one for the horse deck. I don't know whether it's functional yet. I'm definitely going to try and rebuild it, but we're looking at a straight here of clubs, which is very, very strong, obviously. Let's, we should probably actually look at what the card does. Noon. Boot your horse to send a dude without a horse at this location home booted. Oh, I've already done that, haven't I? Yep, it's an awesome card. Interesting, interesting. Trail between your legs. Okay. React. After your call out is accepted, the mark must form their posse before you form yours. The mark gets -2 bullets. Love it. Absolutely love it. Yeah, this is a fantastic card. 0 cost to play for starters. Wow, can't go with that. It's a react, so it's got a very strict timing thing. You know, you're not going to tip your hand. And what I love about this, I mean, you're already committed to the combat, which is a bit meh, but it reduces bullets, unless, of course, you have Mr. McKenna Man, who can't have his bullets reduced. Where was he? Can't reduce his bullets. But, see, the thing is, this game, it does have a random element to the shootouts, but it's actually a little more predetermined than you'd imagine when you think about card games. And the fact is that you can get pretty decent ideas on how or if you're going to win or lose a shootout based on the posse that you're facing. And the defender getting to form their posse second is a huge advantage. I mean, it is a big advantage. Swapping that round, so they've got to form first, and, you know, they would probably always have to form as, you know, the worst alternative, you know, whatever's the most hardcore thing I could do, that's what they got to defend of. You know, and this is a react. It only reacts to call out, so you can't do it to, you know, jobs or anything. But even so, I think this is a fantastic card. This is probably my favorite club in this set easily. Really good card. Love it. Okay, next. Yeah, that is a huge effect, getting to form your posse second. Ah, look at this. They said the name of the film. Election Day Slaughter. It's a king. It's a high club. Nice. It's a noon job, and it's a boot. Mark the town square. Each other player may unboot a dude in town. If successful, each other player must ace one of their dudes in town. Okay, this is actually a pretty strong card. Like I said, one of the things is in this game, one of the big things in this game anyway, is the problem with moving around. Now, what's interesting about, I don't know about this card. I was thinking, I had a train of thought going, which I was sort of rambling on about, but I kind of think it actually doesn't work exactly that way. Let's have another read. Mark the town square. Each other player may unboot a dude in town. So anywhere in town. And remember, the town square is adjacent to anything. So you're basically saying, if I do Election Day Slaughter, any card that you have that is in town, except for the ones that are on the outskirts of town, can attend this fight. So you're encouraging them to bring their best, so to speak. And it's only the other players. You don't get to unboot anybody. But if you're successful, they have to ace one of the dudes in town. So they don't even need to ace the guys they're bringing to the party. Now, I talked about this a little bit with the bounty guy here, who can gain high. You know, you might want to end up piling them up with bounties. Where was he? This dude here. I like this guy. Okay. But what I'm trying to get at here is that drawing people out of the houses, drawing them out of the locations and into various spots is actually a good thing. Now remember, it's not adjacent. Okay, let me try and get this out. It's not adjacent to go backwards, okay? So anyone can move from a house into town. That's fine, that's adjacent. But it's actually not adjacent moving from town back to the deeds. So what you've basically done is that you've pulled people into the center, and then if they haven't come, if they might not be able to get back as easily, you know? So you've basically, they come back tapped, say. So you could go to a location afterwards, after this happens, even if you lose, and then you go to a location. Then they come back to the location to guard that, get the influence back off you. But they come in tapped, and then you can do a call out, and there's nothing they can do. I don't know. This is an interesting card. I like this card a lot. I think it's a difficult card to function though, because of the fact that you're untapping their best guys, basically. You're basically untapping their best characters in the game, even if they don't want to attack, you know? I mean, if obviously you got to ace someone if you fail the job, but I don't know. I almost think the untapping is a more powerful effect than the killing. Interesting. I like this card, but I'd have to use that a few times to see it in action, because I think this is the kind of card that could backfire quite easily. And that's it. Election Day Slaughter. Bam. God, this is such a fantastic game. Just reading these cards just gets you so hyped to play it. Summoning. My God, that is a good card. Wow. Puppet Master, another great card. A little hard to use. Mayfair Family deck, meh. Teleportation, absolutely love it. The Evidence, interesting card. I like it, but I don't think there's a lot of use for it just yet. Same goes for Hunter Projections. Mayor's Office, again, there's lots of ways and lots of reasons you want to change your influence, not just winning the game. There are many cards that key off influence of other cards, so that's obviously a great card. Angela, yeah, like her. Angela's good. I think she's very difficult to use. She's got a very awkward, timing structure, but yeah, she's all right. Quarterman, love it. Absolutely adore this guy. I think he's awesome. I like the idea of the deck thinning, and I like the idea of him not being unique. And yeah, I just like him, period. I think he's a freaking awesome card. Jake Smiley, another awesome card who is a little not cool to look at, but +2 influence. Milk Commons, I love this guy as well. Man, I just like... my problem with this game is I like the game so much that... I like the way the synergies work in this game. I like the way the cards functions and the theme so much that it blinds me to the cards themselves, because they're just all awesome. They might not be powerful cards to play the game in, but the cards themselves are always awesome. Now, these experience cards, I dig experience as a concept. It was fantastic in the original, and I think that, seeing it in, what is this, pack 4 or 3 or something, seeing it so early in Doomtown is really going to mean that this is going to be a thing, like a big thing, and I think this is a strong effect. I'm not a huge fan of doing jobs unless there's a really great payout, but interesting. This guy here is an absolute bomb. I think he is a bomb. Very, very aggressive and powerful, and the ability to trigger a trading phase when he comes in, so you can load him up with, horses and flamethrowers or repulsor shields or whatever the hell you want. I mean, that's just awesome. Okay, Dr. Adram Gimli. He's pretty cool. Meh. Drew, I wasn't too impressed with Drew either. I kind of like his idea here, but I don't know. My experience is that most people can just negate this ability by just not doing cheating. You don't cheat, and then you've got no problem with this card, completely negating it. And if he had a resource cost on it, then I'd just totally chuck him out. But I don't know. Stanford Phillip, the other experience. I like that one too. It's not as good as the other one. Smiling Tom is bonkers. Seriously, he's an abomination. He's got 2 bullets. He's a queen for your draws. And he's a huckster 4. What? Now, he does have the problem where he can only move to other locations with, other carnies. But it's interesting to note that actually means opponents as well. So if you're playing, an opponent is playing a carny deck, he's good. We do have a mulligan, not a mulligan, we do have a sideboarding rule in our local, so people can sideboard a little between matches. So you could definitely be good for that. Yeah, I like this guy. I think he's an extremely strong abomination, especially with all the effects to get him in and out of play. And the Brute himself, I like this guy as well. He's another Carney, he's another abomination, and he's basically a meat shield. Dig it. What an awesome game. Okay, so that's it. Election Day Slaughter, baby. See you next time.